Good morning, once again, and welcome to day 2 of our Masterclass, where we find the foundations for fat loss so that you can optimize your journey and stop treading water or feel like you're running on a treadmill of never getting anywhere despite your efforts. Okay, today we're going to talk about empowering exercise, as well as go over muscle and protein and what it means to find the actual content of the foods that you eat so that you can match that calorie goal that you might have made and we covered in day number 1. Because calories are they're very powerful in a fat loss goal because they help you to understand how much energy your body uses so that as you understand your intake of food, you understand how much more you need to be burning on a daily expenditure level as opposed to how much you are taking in via food. Just like with a car, you have to put gas in the tank in order to keep it running. And so our body works similarly. However, the difference between the two is that if you were to overfill your gas tank on your car would simply overflow because it cannot hold the extra energy. The extra fuel. Food is fuel. The difference here is that our body actually has a storage system that if you keep putting fuel in the tank, it will find a way to store it for later in the form of fats and other things in our body, like muscle, bone, all that stuff. Typically, what we are looking for is to minimize the fat on our body. And that is where we come to finding a fat loss phase. Okay, as we spoke of yesterday, we have our total daily energy expenditure. You can calculate this one of 3 ways. You can do calculator, you can track your food for 2 weeks while watching the scale, or you can go get a body composition scan. Okay, as an example, we can use 2,000 calories for someone's total daily energy expenditure or their maintenance, as you will find it called online, which means that if you eat the same amount that your body is burning, your scale weight will stay generally the same. Now, yesterday I promised we would talk more about the basal metabolic rate here and how you can optimize that, as well as your TEF, your thermic effect of food. The two are your basal metabolic rate is your basic bodily function, the energy your body uses breathing. Digesting is in the thermic effect of food, but your basal metabolic rate is your breathing, your organ function, your brain function, just whatever it would take for your body to still work, even if you laid in bed all day and did nothing else. Now, your thermic effect of food is what we're also going to talk here because it ties very in closely to our message of protein. Since we're talking about empowering exercise, the reason that is so important is because when you are optimizing your diet and movement for both exercise and eating more protein, you will be not only in the long run increasing the calorie burn in your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, because you will be increasing the muscle on your body. Muscle burns more calories than fat does on your body on average. And therefore, having more muscle can make it so that in the long term, you can eat more food and move better and more strongly without doing much different other than maintaining a regular exercise regimen. Now, when it comes to the thermic effect of food, this comes down to protein and vegetables require more energy to burn the food that you eat than other foods do because they're much less calorie dense. Okay? It means that if you are eating more protein, typically it'll be burning off more as you eat it, and it'll also be contributing to whatever exercise or resistance training you do so that your BMR slowly over time increases as well. Not only that, but your exercise activity thermogenesis is going to go up as well because you're doing more exercise, and your NEAT, just the simple act of walking somewhere, going somewhere, is also going to increase. So exercise has a huge impact on anyone and everyone's journey to feel better, look better, move better. And it is just such a mental hack in terms of feeling empowered as a person, feeling more confident, feeling more strong. These are things that are all byproducts of setting a goal for yourself and then following it through to the end, okay? That is why whatever exercise works for you is going to get you the farthest. In the beginning, absolutely, for sure. Just sticking to something regularly and sticking with it is going to help you feel much better as a person because it is something that you set out to do and accomplished. And then on the back end, you've got all of these other benefits that come in the body. If it was a pill, if exercise was a pill, it'd be the most prescribed pill in the world because of all of the absolute amazing benefits that it offers you. Okay, so not to get too derailed here, but the problem that I'm intending to solve here is understanding what foods you should or shouldn't be eating for fat loss, okay? The short answer is that generally you can eat any kind of food and still lose weight, okay? However, when it comes to being in a fat loss phase and counteracting some of the negative effects you might experience of being in a deficit, there are better or best foods that will help you get where you need to go in order to truly optimize your experience. Okay, things like protein and vegetables as well as high quality carbs. We're going to cover that here soon in terms of what different labels look like, because scientists have already gone through, they've found an energy quantity for different foods and what kind of quality foods there are. And here I'm going to show you how you can figure that out for yourself if you haven't already done it, okay? Calorie counting is going to be your biggest thing. Nutrition labels, the nutrition facts. Why is the word calorie used so frequently when it comes to exercise and movement and fat loss or fat gain? And it is because it is the best way to stay consistent and understand what you are putting in your body versus what you are doing for movement. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up what we have for a few examples. Nutrition facts are on almost anything that you find for food. Okay, I just come to Walmart and I look stuff up because they have a great database. Almost every single food that they have posted on this website will have a nutrition label or something similar to it. And it is a very good tool to just generally figure out what is in the different things that you might be eating. If you have time to just poke through, the Walmart app is a great resource. Going online to walmart.com is a great resource. But here I have some chocolates, some really good chocolates that I personally enjoy. But to go over the nutrition label, first off, you'll always find at the top is going to be a number of servings, okay? This means that in this bag, you're going to have to multiply that serving size times the number of servings. So with these little lint balls, for sure, what it means is there's a serving size of 3 balls, okay? 3 balls is what's going to show up on this nutrition label. In 3 Lindor balls is 220 calories, okay? Typically it looks like they're saying there should be about 36 balls in a bag here, which sounds like a lot, and it can be. So if you find yourself eating a whole bag and feeling kind of guilty about it, that might be why, because it would be this label. This is 220 calories times 12 is the total number of calories in this bag of chocolates. Okay, so per serving, we've got the 220 calories. The 3 primary macros you're going to hear people talking about are fats, carbs, and proteins. So here we have fat at the top. Near the middle, we have our carbohydrates, our carbs, and our protein down near the bottom. Okay, those are going to be the things that are most important to track because, as I mentioned earlier, protein is a pretty important thing, as well as the quality of your carbohydrates. Now, one way you can judge the quality of your carbohydrates is going to be how, this is 16 grams of carbs per 3 balls. Now we have dietary fiber is typically what you're going to look for as a good thing because dietary fiber does not digest the same as sugars. It's a bit harder for for your digestive tract to break down, and therefore it doesn't really get digested down as energy. Okay, so which is why a lot of times if something has high fiber, you're going to see people talk about how those carbs just don't count. I still count them personally because they're going into my body, but some people like to discount them because they consider that as something the body doesn't digest. Okay, below that we have our sugars. Okay, this is going to be how many carbs are some from usually refined sugars, or just something that's going to spike your blood sugars and not be a long-term form of energy. This is where the quality of our energy from carbs is going to come, because carbs is any type of carb is going to be our most primary source of energy. By cutting those out, say doing something like keto, you are making it so that your body has to take several different pathways to digest the other two forms of energy, your fats and your proteins, to convert it to energy. That's several other steps that the body has to take in order to make energy. Carbs are going to skip that step and give you an easily accessible form of carbs. Now here, the issue with the sugars is not so much the sugars themselves, but rather the added sugars become something that it gives you a sugar spike and then it drops. Okay? Whenever you are going into a deficit and everything that you eat is going to matter in terms of energy you want, we need more of something that's going to get us through the day. Not something that's going to spike our energy for 30 minutes and then cause us to crash. Because then what's going to happen? We're going to be more hungry. We're going to be more tired. It just doesn't feel very good, right? You know, when you give kids a bunch of candy and they crash, what happens? Are we pretty excited about it? No, they get cranky, and so do adults. Now, when it comes to being full, there's a fullness factor that comes with a lot of this. Fats tend to be quite filling, and so do protein. But this one is quite low on the protein scale. Okay, it's candy. Of course it is. Nowadays, you'll find more candies that are starting to be marketed as health stuff with higher proteins. But generally, you may still see that they're higher in sugars and higher in carbs and higher in fats, definitely, with each of those. So my general goal with going over this in the beginning was to get it so that we could introduce the importance of carbs and fats, okay? This is not a high protein food by any means. There's only 2 grams of carbs each, okay? I have a few other foods here that are, like if we were to choose just a cottage cheese of some kind, we've got our meats, of course, but there's also other things like yogurts and cottage cheese, low-fat cheese. Those things are also great forms of protein. So as I mentioned, we've got our nutrition facts here. It's pretty easy to find most of the time, just in the pictures. And you can see that there's the total fats, 1 gram, much lower. Total carbs, much lower. And then protein is high. This is considered a high protein food because the number of proteins is much higher than the other 2 numbers that you'll find on here. Okay, those are fantastic things to use to hit your protein target. When it comes to a protein target, you are going to want to aim for 0.5 to 1% of your total body weight. That'll be your grams of protein that you're aiming for. Okay, that's a pretty good measure to help get yourself started with protein. If you've never had to hit a protein goal before, I recommend starting on the low end. But then as you refine your process and you get farther into things and you kind of get the hang of incorporating enough protein into your diet, then increase it closer to the 1%, okay? Because in the beginning, eating that much protein is very filling for many people. It's a big change in what they have in their different meals, and therefore it is something that they want to, it can be a challenge at first, but as you get better at it, it does improve. I gotta take this from him. And then we have our other things like chicken. Okay, I have 2 different types of chicken. Or actually I have shrimp and chicken. The reason I have these 2 is because 1, this is chicken thighs. This is bone-in chicken thighs with skin. Okay, very important to note. Because the difference here is that the fats are much higher on a bone-in and fat. The skin is mostly fat on a chicken. It's much higher. There's 20 grams. It is a meat, so there's generally almost no carbs usually in most meats. That's why we've got a 0 on the carbohydrates, and then the protein is 17. Now, this is a high protein but high fat food because it's got 17 grams of protein while simultaneously having 20 grams of fat. Okay, that is a lot. There's much more fat in it than protein when you calculate out the fact that fats are 9 calories per gram as opposed to protein being 4 calories per gram. That's why listed up here at the top, this one's kind of nice, not all labels do this, is it tells you the total calories, but then it also tells you how many of those calories is from fat. 180 out of 250 is a lot of calories from fat. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with these. If you have a higher fat goal as well, fats are great for regulating your hormones. I would never recommend cutting them out completely. But the protein content, if we're aiming for like 30 grams per serving, you'd need 2 servings of these, but you're going to get a lot of fats to go with it as well. Okay? That in contrast to something like either plain white chicken or shrimp. Okay, this is one of the leaner cuts of meat, seafood that you're going to find. Because if we're looking here, we can see our fats are very low, 1.5 per serving. And the serving is 3 ounces on this one. I believe it's 4 ounces on the other. Yep, it is 4 ounces on this one. A lot of meats you'll find will use a 4-ounce serving size. A lot of Walmart's shrimp uses a 3-ounce serving size. Okay, there's 70 calories per serving. See how different that is from the 250 from the chicken? That means that our fats are much lower, which means that we are getting much more protein per. Almost all of the calories are coming from protein in this example. If we take the 12 times 4, that's 48 calories of the 70 is coming from protein. Okay, that is why this is considered a much higher, leaner protein than other ones. This is why, in the end, by eating your shrimp, the same amount of shrimp, ounce-wise, if we were to do 4 ounces of shrimp versus 4 ounces of bone-in and skin-on chicken thighs, our calories are a lot lower, even though the food weighs the same. Okay, because there's less fats, and fats have a higher calorie content per gram. So that is our thing there, okay? So the reason why protein is so important is that it helps you build your muscles, okay? It is what makes up the muscles in your body generally. It is what's going to help you retain muscle as you age, retain muscle as you exercise, which is going to give you more shape and form in the long run so that you feel and look more accomplished in what you are doing when it comes to exercise in the gym, as well as just still being able to maintain effective bodily function as you grow older. We may not be worrying about that right now, but if you aren't, you should be, just because I have found that exercise is one of the most anti-aging things that you can do for yourself. Okay, even as I grow older, because I turned 30 this last year, I feel better now than I did when I was 20. Okay, and I get excited actually thinking about age because I know that if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm just going to get stronger and I'm going to be getting closer and closer to what I'd like to see for myself, whether it's discipline-wise, confidence-wise, just being able to accomplish other things in my life because I've been able to set out to do something and do it, like actually accomplish it and not feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. So that is why we want to get into prioritizing protein and muscle and watching our labels so that you understand if I go out for a walk and that burns 100 calories and then I come back in and I have a salad that has 300 calories in it, that on top of my basic bodily function, I know that I'm in a deficit today. And that means that I'm one step closer to my fat loss goal, going day by day and week by week. Okay, so we're still focusing on our total daily energy expenditure, being fed, having energy while also attaining our fat loss goals. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I do have 3 spots left in my spring special training. Once those spots fill, my prices will be going up. If you are interested in fat loss coaching, training, or even maintenance, I offer programming. We go step by step, week by week, find your best phases for you, as well as your calorie input and output. Okay, that's what we work on. If you are interested in doing that, please feel free to comment deficit down below, and I will help you with that. Tomorrow, we are going to dive more into how to actually stick to a plan and pulling it all together in terms of phases. What does it mean to come in and out of a fat loss phase? Why would we come in and out of a fat loss phase? What can we do to improve those things and the way that it impacts our lives? Because the most important part is sustainability, being able to stick with it long term, and being able to feel better while we do it. Okay? Those are all very important, and I'm very excited to dive more into those with you. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow.